Both him as a person as well as his lived example, known as the Sunnah, because it is that example that has lasted over time, and it is what we strive to follow when we call ourselves Muslim. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when he said about people who surrender themselves to him, he says in Surah Fussilat, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, وَمَنْ أَحْسَنُ قَوْلًا مِمَّنْ دَعَا إِلَى اللَّهِ وَعَمِلَ صَالِحًا وَقَالَ إِنَّنِي مِنَ الْمُسْلِمِينَ. In Surah Fussilat, which is the clarification, translation, the clarification, Allah says by way of the translation that there is indeed no one better than the one who calls people to surrender and follows that calling up with righteous actions and proclaims that they are themselves one of those who surrender themselves to God, to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so the Prophet ﷺ, his primary responsibility was to surrender first. And this is why when you read in the Seerah, the biography and the collected history of the Prophet ﷺ, and we read the story of how the Messenger of Allah received the message. After he received the message from Allah by way of Jibril, he first had to surrender. So he could not go out to people and tell people that they must worship Allah, they must surrender to God, without he himself first capitulating to that order. And this is what the Prophet ﷺ said. And this is how he lived that verse. وَقَالَ إِنَّنِي مِنَ الْمُسْلِمِينَ. And they say, I am counted amongst those who surrender. So Muslim here meaning, in its proper understanding, one who surrenders to the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is what the Prophet ﷺ did, and this is his way. So this is where we get the understanding that, you know, the leader, the spiritual leader, Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, would have lacked credibility had he told people to do something that he himself did not do. In fact, in his capacity as messenger, we have documentation, we have the hadith in which the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam is reported to have offered prayer, voluntary prayer, not obligatory prayer, voluntary prayer. He's reported to have offered this prayer so much that it caused him physical harm, that he pained himself. Aisha radiallahu anha, she said that the Messenger of Allah would get up in the night and pray so much that his feet swelled up, that his feet cramped up. And when she would say to him with compassion, Ya Rasulullah, O Messenger of Allah, why are you doing this? You're good. You don't have to do this. You don't have to do this. Allah revealed the message to you. You got it good. You got it made. قَدْ غَفَرَ لَكَ مَا تَقَدَّمَ مِنْ ذَنْبِكَ وَمَا تَأَخَّرَ. Allah forgave you. It was preordained that you will stand before Allah on the day of reckoning as one of the leaders. Right? You will stand alongside your brother messengers, Musa, Isa, Moses, and Jesus, and the other messengers. Right? You will stand with them. You don't have anything to worry about. You will be given the keys to the secrets of the next realm of reality. Why are you doing all of this, Ya Rasulullah? And he captured the answer that he gave, captured the appropriate attitude. Once you surrender to Allah, you are humbled and you are grateful. Because the Prophet ﷺ, when he was asked, why do you do this? He said, أَفَلَا أَكُونُ عَبْدًا شَكُورًا. Should I not be a humble and grateful servant that God gave me all of this? Should I not be humble? Should I not be grateful? أَفَلَا أَكُونُ عَبْدًا. So he referred to himself as a servant. As a servant. And this was an honorific title for the Prophet ﷺ, that he was first and foremost a servant of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. أَفَلَا أَكُونُ عَبْدًا شَكُورًا. Should I not be grateful, not boastful, not arrogant, not putting people down, not belittling people, right? But calling people to the way. This is what the Prophet ﷺ did. He called people to the way, and he stood with resoluteness in the face of the opposition that faced him. And he did this with the humility of a servant, because this is what the prophethood was about. It was about humility. The humility is that the servant recognizes their station before God. That the servant, the creation, the insan, the person, the human being, recognizes that they are not God, God is God. And when the servant, when the human being recognizes that they are not God, they humble themselves to God. This is what the Prophet ﷺ did. He humbled himself to God. And this is why Allah elevated his status. This is why Allah tells us in the Quran that the Prophet ﷺ, his name, there's like a weird random fact I read some years ago, that the most popular name in the country of England, they don't speak Arabic, but the most popular name is Muhammad. The most commonly known name is Muhammad. The Prophet ﷺ, Allah told the Prophet, وَرَفَعْنَا لَكَ ذِكْرَكَ in Surah Al-Inshirah, أَلَمْ نَشْرَحْ لَكَ صَدْرَكَ وَوَضَعْنَا عَنْكَ وِزْرَكَ الَّذِي أَنْقَضَ ظَهْرَكَ وَرَفَعْنَا لَكَ ذِكْرَكَ. And we elevated your status. We elevated your status. So there are those in history who disagreed with the Prophet ﷺ, who fought him, who opposed him, but they never accused him of being an arrogant, self-serving person, not during his time. And even when accusations are made against the Prophet ﷺ, they don't bear the weight of scrutiny, because this is not who the Prophet was. In reality, yes, people can write what they want, but the reality of Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, وَرَفَعْنَا لَكَ ذِكْرَكَ. Amongst his people, even during his time, when there was opposition to the message, he came with a weird message. Those people had Allat wal Uzza. They had their idols. The Prophet said, don't worship the idols, worship the Lord of the idols. What is this new stuff? When he said, Ana Rasulullah, they looked at him, looked up and down. You? How are you? God's messenger. You don't have nothing. Allah tells us in the Quran, وَقَالُوا لَوْلَا نُزِّلَ هَذَا الْقُرْآنِ عَلَىٰ رَجُلٍ مِّنَ الْقَرْيَتَيْنِ عَظِيمٍ. They said about him, should not this Quran have been revealed to رَجُلٍ مِّنَ الْقَرْيَتَيْنِ عَظِيمٍ, a great man from Mecca or Ta'if, the city of Mecca, one of the great ones, one of the wealthy men, one of the men of means, not Muhammad, he's orphan. This dude's an orphan, right? He don't have no money. Yeah, he's a good guy, but who is he? Right? But they could never say he was a bad guy. He was from the lowest of us. There are no reports that say this about the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Why? Because he is al-Mustafa. Allah chose him for this mission. And it is consistent with how Allah Ta'ala chooses prophets. Isa alayhi salam, Jesus, had opposition during his time. The people with the coins weren't trying to hear from Jesus to give up more coins. And I'm sure, why is this dude telling us to, not flaunt our wealth? Why should we care about the poor? Sayyidina Isa alayhi salam was with the people who needed him the most. And he was in opposition to those who abused their power, who abused their God-given gifts. He wasn't along with them. And Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam came in that lineage of Risala.
Musa alayhi salam, Moses, the same thing. Moses, by the description of the Quran, Moses was a guy who came from the school of hard knocks. His mother threw him in the river. He told her, said, look, God's going to take care of him, because he did. He ended up in the court of the Pharaoh. The Pharaoh's wife took a liking to him and insisted that they raise him. Then he went and stood in opposition to the Pharaoh of his time. And along the way, he did hard labor. He worked with his hands. And he had a confrontation with someone, and he hit him and killed him. Because he was strong. He came from the school of hard knocks. So when he came as a messenger, he stood before Fir'aun, right? Allah told him, فَقُولَا لَهُ قَوْلًا لَيِّنًا. Say to Pharaoh, remind him that he has a Lord. Not remind him that you are Lord. Don't remind him that he's Lord, because this is what Fir'aun was saying. Fir'aun said, I am God. Fir'aun said, I am God. Fir'aun, when Musa stood before him, laughed and said, look, he called some of his court people and said, Ya Haman, his main right-hand person, Haman, look, ibni li sarhan la'alli ablugh al-asbab. Look, come here, build me this structure, this edifice that goes up, so that I can go up to the heavens, right? Asbab as-samawati wal-ard fa'attali'a ila ilahi Musa. So I can go and I can find the God of Moses and look him in the eye. وَإِنِّي لَأَظُنُّهُ كَاذِبًا. And I think he's lying. I don't know if they built it or not. But it was folly. It was the arrogance and hubris of a human being, thinking that they are eternal and they're going to go and confront the eternal. And what happened to Pharaoh? Where is the Pharaoh now? And the Quran tells us as a reminder, where are they now? Because the reality of life, as we experience it, is that people come and they go. And you have the time that you have, the moments that you have. And in those moments, we humbly seek from Allah that we recognize our reality. And our reality is that we are all souls. We are souls having a physical experience. You live inside of your body. You live inside of your body, your soul. And the soul came from where it was predetermined to come from. And when you die, when I die, my soul will go on. This was the message of all of the prophets of Allah. This was the message of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam in its most basic understanding. And it was problematic. It was problematic because it challenged the idea that no, the reality is that I'm all there is, and it's about me. Here and now. This was Fir'aun. He had all of the wealth, all of the land, all of the labor. The children of Israel, Bani Israel, he enslaved them. He killed the women, killed the men, and enslaved the women. And he had ultimate power. And he's nowhere to be found because he wasn't eternal. The eternal one decreed that his life would end. The way every human being created by the eternal one, their life comes to an end because you have a lifespan. So this is the essential message of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, beloved brothers and sisters. And part of what we are constantly reminded to do, and we strive to do it from this minbar, is to remind ourselves that we are in fact on this journey. I saw a nice little meme on Facebook that said, we are on a journey from Allah to Allah. This is your reality. This is your reality. And all you have to really do to think about this, using your mind, is how many people died that were here, living, breathing, just like you and me. And it doesn't matter if they're young or old. Right? This delusion or this deception that we can somehow control that. People die every day. And part of why we don't pay attention is because we're distracted by what's not real. We're so heavily engaged in what's not real. The reality is that you are a soul and you have some time here. That's my reality. That's your reality. And this shows up, right, in all of the aspects. So this is why you've been hearing me preach about, part of our problem today as Muslims, right, is that we have disconnected the spiritual tradition from the religion, the ritualistic practice, right? So I had a few words prepared about wudu, right? And purification, cleanliness. Because as we understand cleanliness as Muslims, before we made salah, everybody in this room, we came and we went and we made wudu. The ablution. We washed our hands the way we were taught and instructed. And this is the injunction by Allah in the Quran. And this is what the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam taught. That you wash your limbs before you pray. But there's a significance and a spiritual value in the washing, just like there's a significance and a spiritual value in the praying. So you don't just show up to prayer with no conscious understanding. How many of you know that the righteous predecessors, many of the ulama, refer to salah as al-hisab al-asghar, the small reckoning. The little reckoning. What does that mean? The big reckoning is when we go back to from where we came. And ultimately when we stand before Allah. Ultimately when we stand before God. Ultimately, whenever that is, right? The small reckoning is every time you stand before Allah in prayer, you are reminding yourself, you're reminding your soul that one day it will stand. This is what the salah is about. The salah is not about the movement. And this is why I've grown to appreciate how my elders used to talk to me. When they would say, you come to the mosque, don't just bang your head on the floor. Because you can just bang your head on the floor. With this idea not rooted in you. Right? That you're just going through the movement. You can make wudu and just be splashing water. But what did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala say about wudu? He calls us to this washing. Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu idha qumtum ila as-salati faghsilu wujuhakum wa aydiyakum ila al-marafiq. O you who believe, when you are preparing to stand for prayer, wash your face and your hands, or your arms up to the elbows. This verse is from verse 6 from Surah 5, right? And oftentimes, this is one of the verses that we reference when we look at the legality of wudu. Because we know legally that Allah will not accept a prayer unless we are in a state of wudu. So I have to prepare for the state of salah by making wudu. However, what we often miss, right, is that the verse has a beginning and then an end. And at the end, Allah Ta'ala tells us something that is very important. So at the end of the verse, Allah Ta'ala says, ما يريد الله ليجعل عليكم من حرج ولكن يريد ليطهركم وَلِيُتِمَّ نِعْمَتَهُ عَلَيْكُمْ لَعَلَّكُمْ تَشْكُرُونَ. Allah says, Allah would not place a burden on you, but He would purify you and would perfect His grace upon you that you may give thanks. So the purpose of the wudu is a gift from Allah. It's like you prepare yourself, not just physically, but spiritually, to enter into the state of prayer. By remembering, and listen to the way that Allah addresses us, that He doesn't want to place a burden on you. Now I would imagine, back in the days when Islam was first only in the Arabian Peninsula, in the Hijaz, the Bedouins who were there, they had to struggle to get water. Those of you that know me know that I had a similar experience when I lived in Saudi Arabia with water. I understand the scarcity of water in the desert. But the burden of making wudu, what does that mean to us today? Where we can just go up to a faucet and turn on water. And just say, we're not conscious, we just run the water. So it's really not a burden. But the burden shows up in our attitude. Why do I got to do this? Why can't I just pray? I already took a shower, right? This morning. Why do I have to burden myself? Well, Allah is telling me, the making wudu is not to put a burden on you. Making wudu is to remind you of the blessing of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. لِيُطَهِّرَكُمْ. Where's the purification coming from? Both from the observance of the wudu as well as the observance of the prayer. It's another opportunity for you to purify your soul. And this idea of purification, the Prophet ﷺ says about it, that ritual purity is the key to prayer. Ritual purity. So your wudu is the miftah to your salah. Meaning that you don't get the full reward of salah without some contemplation and some focus on the significance of your wudu. And there are many hadith. Or you can Google hadith about the reward of making wudu. But then the Prophet ﷺ also said that ritual purity is half of faith. الطهور شطر الإيمان. Literally, cleanliness, like they say in other traditions, cleanliness is next to godliness. الطهور شطر الإيمان. Ritual purity is half of faith. What does this mean? It's certainly not limited to just washing your hands in the sink when you make wudu. Because this ritual purity, as Allah says, إِنَّ اللَّهَ يُحِبُّ التَّوَّابِينَ وَيُحِبُّ الْمُتَطَهِّرِينَ, this tahara, this tahur, this purification is the engagement of the entire self in this constant pursuit of this state of purification. Not just externally, internally. Start inside. This is how we get the idea of purifying the heart. That's also tahur. So the engagement in purifying the heart, disciplining the soul. This is the spiritual tradition. And if we're not connected to that, then no wonder we do all kinds of stuff in the name of God. Because we've lost the purpose of the message. We've strayed away from the purpose of the message. Right? So this ritual purity, this hadith articulates that the prophetic agenda, all of the messengers who are brothers in the Risala, is that, first of all, understanding that cleanliness is an obligation to fulfill the obligation of prayer. And this includes the cleanliness of your space, but it also has implications for how we live. So our home should be clean. Our clothes should be clean. There's no spiritual, there's no piety in, being dirty and disheveled. And some people have mixed this message up. Tattered clothes, dirty clothes, even stuff our own mamas didn't teach us to do this. So how is the message of God that is supposed to enlighten you confusing you to the point that you think that this is being spiritual? Right? I mean, this is serious stuff. But we have to make the connections. Right? So, yes, we make wudu because Allah told us, and the Prophet ﷺ taught us to do it. And he said, pray the way you see me pray. Sallu kama ra'aytumuni usalli. But we should also recognize that the goal of purification is also to place, perhaps primarily, a focus on the internal purification by rectifying and improving the affairs of the human soul through knowledge, the acquisition of knowledge, and most importantly, the implementation of knowledge. And this is the prophetic agenda. This is what they call the Muhammadi way. This is why some of the spiritual masters, and I heard one of them say it, Sheikh Ibrahim Joub, may Allah have mercy on him, a scholar from Senegal, from the Tijani Tariqah. He said, and this is why we place the emphasis in our efforts, as-sajid qabla masjid. And he was very critical of the way that the Muslims, build edifices. Not that there's anything wrong with an edifice and a structure. You have to have that, right? But you can't have that at the neglect of the human being that's in the edifice, that's in the structure. Because it's then a neglect of where the attention goes in the first place, to the soul, not the soil. Attention to the soil is important, but attention to the soul is paramount and is consistent in the Quran. Look at what Prophet Ibrahim ﷺ said. إِلَّا مَنْ أَتَى اللَّهَ بِقَلْبٍ سَلِيمٍ. This was Abraham's prayer. Do not disgrace me on the day of recognition. وَلَا تُخْزِنِي يَوْمَ يُبْعَثُونَ يَوْمَ لَا يَنْفَعُ مَالٌ وَلَا بَنُونَ إِلَّا مَنْ أَتَى اللَّهَ بِقَلْبٍ سَلِيمٍ. This is Abraham's prayer in the Quran, one of them. Oh God, don't disgrace me on the day of resurrection. On the day when there will be no benefit to man, my money, my assets, wala banun, or my progeny. He said, except إِلَّا مَنْ أَتَى اللَّهَ بِقَلْبٍ سَلِيمٍ. Except for those who come to God with a clean heart. So this is one of the ways that we can begin to make the connection. Even the ritualistic acts are not just done for the sake of doing. Right? That there's a spiritual value to these things. Right? And they are always connected to the reality of the human soul. The reality of the human being. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to bless us to remember our reality. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to forgive us whenever we stray away from the proven path of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and his family and the predecessors and even our predecessors. We always make dua for our mothers and fathers in our cultural context. Because oftentimes you find yourself connecting to basic ideas. Basic ideas. Right? So we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to mend our hearts and to connect us to ourselves in the most beautiful way. أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله العظيم لي ولكم ولسائر المسلمين والمسلمات من كل ذنب فاستغفروه إنه هو الغفور الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد الطيب الطاهر الأمين وعلى آله وصحابته ومن تبع هديه إلى يوم الدين. Before we offer the prayer, brothers and sisters, I have a very short announcement. I wanted to take a moment to welcome. We have some guests today, and they are a group of young students and their administrators who are here with us. They've been with us today. They visited our school. They are on alternative spring break students, and they are a delegation that are here from the Interfaith Center and other places. And so there are women here upstairs with the sisters, and there are some gentlemen here in the room, and we want to warmly welcome people when they are among us, because they are people who are not Muslim, but they are welcome in our masjid, right? And this is really something that we have to get back to, another tradition, right, that somehow we've become confused about. All right, so we want to welcome the young men and women that are here with us today. And inshallah, immediately after Salah, we will have a conversation during which that I will do a brief presentation, as brief as possible, considering the fact that you all know that when you give imams the microphone, problems happen. The same way you give a pastor or preacher the microphone, the minister, say, preacher, you got 5 minutes, you know what you're getting into, right? You might be there for a half hour. The rabbi, the same thing. It's no different with the imam, but inshallah we'll keep it nice and tight and leave plenty of opportunity for them to ask questions. And you all are welcome, both brothers and sisters, to stick around. We're going to congregate down here about 10 or 15 minutes after we pray, and so that we can have this exchange, this opportunity to talk to one another, to know each other, to learn about each other, primarily them about us. Because our reality as Muslims in this country is still that we're still the big mystery, the big question mark. You know, what are they doing? What are they about? Right? And this is one of the things that we are responsible for. We are responsible for telling people who we are and showing people, more importantly, who we are. So I'm asking everyone, inshallah, that we are hospitable, that if we make eye contact with someone, that we speak to them and acknowledge them. And I want to say welcome to everyone that's here with us today, and hopefully we'll have a beautiful wrap-up to what has already been a pretty good day for us. ألا وصلوا على سيد المرسلين وإمام المتقين وقد أمركم الله بذلك في كتابه العزيز وقال جل من قائل إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما اللهم صل وسلم وبارك وأنعم على عبدك ورسولك نبينا محمد وارض اللهم عن الصحابة والتابعين ومن تبعهم وهداهم إلى يوم الدين وارض اللهم عنا معهم برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. ربنا تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم وتب علينا إنك أنت التواب الرحيم. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين.